Welcome to Wi-Fi Now TV, everybody. If you're like me, you probably use Wi-Fi all day and nearly all the time. But could millions of happy Wi-Fi consumers across America really lose their Wi-Fi if we don't take action? Well, we'll ask my guest today, Bill Maguire, Executive Director of SaveOurWiFi.org, and we'll be back right after this short message. All right, welcome back, everybody. This is Wi-Fi Now TV, of course, and my name is Claus Hetting, and I'm really looking forward to this show because my good friend Bill Maguire from Save Our Wi-Fi is here today. We're going to get to Bill in just a second, but before we do that, don't forget that we're taking Wi-Fi Now, the conference, to Washington, D.C. this coming April 19th to 21st, of course. It will be the most comprehensive update on all things Wi-Fi assembled in the US and anywhere, really. And of course, a great opportunity for you to network with all the great folks from across the industry. Check out our program at wifinowevents.com/USA. And if you have any questions, drop me a line at klaus@wifinowevents.com. Don't forget to mark your calendars. The dates are April 19th to 21st, and it's going to be happening in Washington, D.C. And by the way, Bill Maguire of Save Our Wi-Fi, Wi-Fi Forward, is going to be there, and it's a pleasure for me to have you on the show, Bill. Welcome to Wi-Fi Now.
Why, thank you so much, Klaus. I'm very pleased to be here.
Great stuff. Now, Bill, I'm just going to cut right to the chase here. So why do you believe that our Wi-Fi needs saving? Are we at risk of losing our Wi-Fi?
Well, Klaus, as your audience well knows, Wi-Fi requires access to unlicensed spectrum, these slivers of the airwaves that have been made available to all of us. And Wi-Fi, these bands were originally thought to be sort of junk bands that weren't going to have a lot of utility and value because they were filled with a lot of odds and ends. Wi-Fi has developed as a technology that utilizes these junk bands, and I think the success of Wi-Fi demonstrates that these junk bands are actually bands of innovation, bands that we should be very pleased to have access to. So we need access to these unlicensed bands, as they're called. And as we have more and more connected devices using these limited bands, it can create interference, and that can have network performance issues. You need to create more access points, and you need to provide the throughput that's necessary to make sure that everyone has the reliable experience with their Wi-Fi network that we've grown accustomed to. So there is a concern, given how central Wi-Fi is to so many of our lives. I've seen statistics that suggest young people in particular would rather give up coffee than Wi-Fi. So given that how it's so central to our lives, a concern that there might not be adequate unlicensed spectrum moving forward is a concern that we would lose the access and reliable access that we've grown accustomed to. We'd lose our Wi-Fi.
Right, and so one of the things that you're advocating, me too, by the way, I'm on your side.
Oh, good.
One of the things you're advocating is that, I'm assuming that even though we might be okay still for a while, now that we know there's an issue with the 2.4 gig, we'll talk about that later.
Yes.
But even if we might be okay with the 5 gigahertz for a while, if we don't start planning for more spectrum now, we might have a problem in a couple of years. And everybody in this business knows that spectrum allocation is a long process to get through in terms of regulation and politics and so forth, right?
You're exactly right about that. So spectrum policy decisions are complicated. Oftentimes they're made challenging because there is an existing user in a band that might be available for more commercial uses of unlicensed spectrum, which includes Wi-Fi, but other technologies like Zigbee and RFID and Bluetooth, other very important and valuable technologies as well. So these decisions and issues are complex, and they require time. And policymakers, if they're going to have the best policy outcome, we think they should have this input about how valuable unlicensed spectrum is to so many of us.
All right, Bill. So just tell us a little bit more about Save Our Wi-Fi, because it's possibly perhaps even the only organization that actually represents the consumer, the average Wi-Fi consumer on this issue, right?
Hey, thanks for that question. So Wi-Fi Forward started 2 years ago, and our mission was really to bring some information about the unlicensed spectrum economy, something we called the unlicensed spectrum economy, to policymakers. And what we heard from those policymakers is that they would like to hear from the users of Wi-Fi as well. So starting in September of last year, we launched Save Our Wi-Fi, an effort to engage consumers. Yes, those consumers like the two of us, Claus, that have Wi-Fi networks at home, but also libraries and schools, consumers of Wi-Fi, local governments, consumers of Wi-Fi. So we're trying to engage all of the very extensive installed base, of course, of the sort of Wi-Fi ecosystem, and let them know that these issues are something they should keep in mind. And they can visit us on www.saveourwifi.org and learn more about us. Follow us on Twitter, and we'll provide all kinds of updates on issues related to Wi-Fi.
Not only that, but I also want to tell our viewers that if you go to saveourwifi.org, you also get to sign a petition. And I just actually did that today. So don't forget to do that. It's a great website. There's a lot of good information. And actually, Bill, I wanted to dig into some of the details that you've actually posted on the website. And by all means, viewers out there, go have a look. But it's about the economic value, because you've studied that extensively, and some of the numbers in some of those studies are actually staggering. Can you share some of those with us?
Oh, with pleasure. So based on 2013 numbers, we think the contribution to the U.S. economy, this is only the U.S. economy we studied, this unlicensed economy, is $222 billion annually. $6.7 billion is directly to the gross domestic product. That's made up of Wi-Fi offloading, Wi-Fi only devices, the sale of those devices, RFID, and then efficiencies and whatnot. Contribute to this what economists call surplus that create this additional 200 billion plus in value. That study did also anticipate a future that we're getting closer to all the time. In 2017, that study estimated that nearly $550 billion a year would be contributed by this unlicensed spectrum economy to the U.S. economy. And it's projected an enormous increase in the direct contributions to GDP, from the $6.7 billion I mentioned in 2013 to nearly $50 billion in 2017. This, of course, speaks to the fact that so many more of us are using Wi-Fi as our sort of primary way to connect with the internet. And those Wi-Fi only devices are more and more prevalent. So the Economist was able to sort of more directly tie the relationship between the use of those devices and the contributions to the economy. As far as we know, these are the most up-to-date economic analysis that are available. And it's obviously very important as an input into policy-making decisions about how spectrum should be advocated for in the future.
Yeah, incredible numbers. So close to 50 billion value in GDP terms by 2017. That's the forecast, if you like. So maybe just tell me, are we doing enough? I know you're doing a lot and I'm doing something, but there's got to be more than just you and me. I'm sure there's other people, but we don't really in the Wi-Fi industry have like a lobby organization like the GSMA, that's obviously supported by the global cellular carriers and so on. What more can we do, and should we do more?
Well, nobody speaks for, Wi-Fi. It is a shared asset and a shared resource utilizing these unlicensed spectrum bands that are also a shared asset. What we're trying to do with Wi-Fi Forward, and particularly with the Save Our Wi-Fi campaign, is really engage the users that feel so passionately about Wi-Fi, bring them into these discussions, make sure that policymakers are aware of how central Wi-Fi is to so many of our lives and to so many key functions in society. We've mentioned education. More and more, there's a role for Wi-Fi in areas like public safety. Some of these mission critical communications even have a role for Wi-Fi. So we'll continue to engage the users of Wi-Fi and invite them into the dialogue, if you will. And Claus, I certainly acknowledge all of the great work that you're doing, particularly reaching out to the technologists who have a real role here, kind of understand all too well that Wi-Fi does not work like magic, that there are certain critical inputs, and are helping develop those technologies that will allow our Wi-Fi to work even better in the future. So kudos to you for that incredible outreach.
Well, thank you so much. And I have to say, I'm always delighted when people say that, but I can tell you I'm having so much fun because, as you said, there's so many passionate people out there, and they're great to work with, lots of fun to work with, and they really get things done. And which kind of leads me on to my next question for you, because there's so much innovation. We also work at Wi-Fi Now with a ton of great startups with great ideas, and some of these startups are really doing well now. Why do you think there's so much innovation in Wi-Fi?
Well, I think one area that I think drives innovation is the install base. There are so many users, and there's so much equipment that has been deployed, that we're starting to see entrepreneurs recognize that that's a new platform that they can access in order to provide innovative services. For instance, at the Consumer Electronics Show this year in Las Vegas, I spent maybe even an hour with Green Peak Technologies, where I saw a demonstration of using Zigbee, another unlicensed technology, and sensors and a learning algorithm that allows seniors and those who love them and take care of them to have peace of mind about an aging at home approach. Green Peak suggests that 5 or 6 sensors in a living area. In the course of 2 weeks, those sensors interacting with the learning algorithm come to understand the patterns of the resident of that area. No cameras, nothing. The resident doesn't have to wear anything. But if there is some unexpected, if the senior sleeps in, for instance, their loved one can be notified through a text message or an email. This is a really, straightforward idea, providing peace of mind to loved ones about their, family members as they get older and are still living independently. But really incredible, right? So we see the entrepreneurial layer above the technology. So that's maybe one. I think the second is the piece that we just talked about earlier in this interview, the technologists. Because of the installed base and demand for more and more wireless connectivity, there's opportunities to make our networks work better, provide more throughput, have extended battery life, do so many of the things that are technological challenges and opportunities for technologists and innovators. And I think they're stepping up to the plate, as you've mentioned. And then I guess I would say that all of this innovation is supported by, I think, a very well-functioning standards initiative. The 802.11 standard at IEEE, has delivered over the last 15 to 16 years a number of updated standards that have allowed these technologies to really grow and enable new services and new connectivity. So that's, my thoughts on innovation in this space, and it really is something that takes my breath away.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with that. And to be honest with you, I think we've only seen the tip of the iceberg, and we'll see a lot more over the coming years, because the standards are evolving, and the newest standards are not even really deployed yet. And we've got lots of space at the 5 gigahertz. There's going to be so much interesting innovation happening in the Wi-Fi space in the coming years. So it's great stuff. But let's talk also a little bit, Bill, about some opportunities, also some challenges facing Wi-Fi today, and maybe comment on some of these issues, because one issue, for example, is that we are facing congestion in the 2.4 gigahertz band, which is, of course, the original Wi-Fi band. A lot of Wi-Fi equipment out there is still configured to use it, so there's a lot of users there. There was an announcement recently and some controversy when a couple of very large US-based companies said that the 2.4 gigahertz band was essentially no longer fit to be used for anything, essentially. What's your view on that story?
Well, I think the announcement by Cisco and Apple lends support to the idea that a band can be too congested. I'm not sure that I have the technical chops to evaluate whether or not that announcement is valid, but I'll take them at their word that they want their customers to have the connectivity that they've grown used to. And the very fact that we can have so much traffic in a band, in this case the 2.4, to need to move to the 5, is an indication that could happen again in the 5, I guess is the way I would choose to interpret that. And I had a little bit of firsthand information. I mentioned earlier that I attended the Consumer Electronics Show this year, and there I had the chance to interview the gentlemen who are at the front lines of providing Wi-Fi for that show. They had, it was Cox Communications, and they had taken over the Wi-Fi contract for the convention center 3 years ago. When they did, there were 166 access points. When I spoke to them, there were 2,200 access points. And what they pointed out to me is that really the number of, I guess, MiFi sort of mobile hotspots that were establishing themselves and reestablishing themselves on the 2.4 gigahertz band was a real challenge for them. And they too were encouraging users to migrate to the 5 gigahertz band. And the sort of aha moment that was a little bit of a surprise to me was that they said it wasn't really about high bandwidth applications. It wasn't that everyone was streaming HD. It really was about this enormous threshold amount of devices that were pinging, that were all in a small area and pinging the same access points. So I think congestion is a concern, and it's a concern that we raise when we're talking to policymakers about, how to create a spectrum policy that will anticipate the future.
Right, and which actually brings me to my next point for discussion, because there has been some talk and political activity in DC and elsewhere on possibly making the 5.9 gigahertz band available for Wi-Fi. Now, this is a bit of a complicated story, as it often is with spectrum allocation, because it's currently allocated for use, well, not exactly by the Department of Transportation, but it is used for vehicular communications and has been allocated to that. And which means we would probably, or the industry would have to find some way of working together with the current occupants of that band and making sure that these things can coexist. At the same time, I also want to mention there's, as far as I understand, something like 70 to 80 megahertz available in that band, which is almost as much as the sum total of the 2.4 gigahertz band. So there's a lot of band there. So how do you expect that story, that allocation might develop? There's a number of FCC commissioners, of course, supporting this, and congressmen and women and senators and so forth have spoken out in favor and so on. What's your view on that?
Well, we really hope there'll be a way forward for sharing here. It is, as you say, a very large band, the 5.9 band. It is adjacent, as you might expect, to the 5.8 band, which is already used for unlicensed devices and commercial uses. So it provides an opportunity for wideband applications and gigabit Wi-Fi technologies to be deployed. We think that's a real opportunity. It's also important that at least at this point, it's basically empty, the band is. So from our point of view, this is the right time to develop an approach that will allow sharing to be sort of baked into the vehicle communications initiatives that are being led by the U.S. Department of Transportation, and enable the consumer broadband access that we think additional unlicensed spectrum would permit and provide for. So we're hopeful that there'll be a way forward. We know that the FCC, in consultation with the DOT, the Department of Transportation, are poised to do some testing, we stand ready to work with all the stakeholders to make sure that we can find a solution that again solves for both vehicle communications, critical vehicle-to-vehicle communications, and provides critical access to additional access to broadband for consumers. Right,
and you would think that Wi-Fi would be well suited to share bands with other applications, because that's what Wi-Fi is really doing already, right? So I think there'd be a fairly good chance at making this work for everybody.
Well, I'm sure that'll be among the issues that the experts test. But I think our enthusiasm for sharing is because we've seen it happen before, and we think it can happen here.
Very good. It's great to have you on the show today, Bill. I just want to ask you this last question. If regular people out there, Wi-Fi users, passionate Wi-Fi users, communities, companies, whomever, want to support Save Our Wi-Fi, what should they do?
Well, please visit us on at saveourwifi.org. Claus, you've kindly pointed out that there's information out there that sort of provides some support for a lot of the issues that we've discussed today. There is also the opportunity to sign the petition. I also would recommend and encourage people to follow us on Twitter. We will live tweet from the Wi-Fi Now event, providing our take on all of the interesting sessions there, and we live tweet from a lot of the events that we participate in, and we respond to issues involving Wi-Fi, so we can bring that to folks' attention. Beyond that, I think it's sort of important to recognize that Wi-Fi doesn't work like magic. So we welcome you, any consumer, any user, to engage in a dialogue with us about how to make sure that policymakers make the policy formulations that provide for reliable Wi-Fi access into the future.
Right, and I definitely recommend to everybody out there listening that get involved in that. It's a really, really good cause. And of course, we support it wholeheartedly, me personally and the Wi-Fi Now team. And I'm sure many, many of the companies and organizations that we work with on our side will also wholeheartedly support Save Our Wi-Fi. It's a great cause. Now, I just want to mention, of course, that you will be coming to the Wi-Fi Now DC conference in April, and you're also hosting a panel on spectrum and regulation with some great guests. And I also want to highlight that we've got kind of a guest of honor on that panel. That's Dr. Michael Marcus, who is really one of the founders of the Wi-Fi ban, if you like, the unlicensed ban. It goes back, that decision goes back something like 25 years. And when we spoke earlier, Bill, you were kind and I think very thoughtful in sending a thought to the people that have created this industry for us, or laid the foundation for this industry, many, many years ago. Dr. Michael Marcus being one, Vic Hayes, who he was gracious enough to speak at our Amsterdam conference. Just say a few words about that. We need to give some credit, right?
Yes, we do. I think at Wi-Fi Forward, we feel as though we're standing on the shoulders of giants to a great degree. When we're trying to advocate for more bans, we recognize that we have a much easier job because of all of the success that we can point to in the current bans. These pioneers of Wi-Fi that you mentioned, including Dr. Marcus, they didn't have the benefit of being able to point to pre-existing success. And yet they had the vision that has allowed these sandboxes of innovation, these innovation bans, to become a reality. So when I have the occasion to speak with them, I try to congratulate them for their vision. They're always very, very humble. Everyone that was involved seems to be very, very humble. But I think it's an incredible gift that they've given to us. And it's an important role that we think we have at Wi-Fi Forward to help advance that and make sure that those bans are available to innovators in the future.
Absolutely. We owe it to them. We owe it to consumers everywhere and the great Wi-Fi industry and all the great companies out there that are really making all of this work. You said that beautifully, Bill. I really want to thank you for coming on the show. We want to support you, and we look forward to seeing you in DC. And everybody out there, come to our DC event, wifinowevents.com/USA, and buy tickets and join myself and Bill and a ton of other great people in DC. We'll be discussing lots of stuff, and we'll be sharing our passion for all this great technology that's just making a huge difference in our lives. Bill, thank you so much.
Thank you, Claus.
All right, everybody, that's Bill Maguire, and it was great to have him. Really enjoyed that. Now, I just have one thing left to say, and that's next week. I'll be traveling, and following that is going to be Easter break. So instead, what we're going to do, we're going to share with you some of the great interviews we did at Mobile World Congress a few weeks back, interviews that include Global Reach, Front Porch, Qualcomm, Aptilo, Nokia, a lot more than that as well. So watch the space as usual. Thank you for watching. I'm Claus Hetting, and I'll see you very soon.
Wi-Fi Now is a production of RCR TV News. To suggest a show topic or to learn more about Wi-Fi Now events, you can reach Claus Hetting at klaus@hettingconsulting.com. To find out more about Wi-Fi Now and all things wireless, visit rcrwireless.com.